Today I want to talk to you about the day that we became a television-based culture instead of a print-based culture, and all the impact that it's had on the entire society, particularly American society, ever since. When Gutenberg, stick with this, when Gutenberg invented the printing press in 1450, the world went through a fantastic and very fast transition. Before Gutenberg, everything in human culture was basically oral. It was the king's word, was how laws were made, and religion was the word of God from the priest, because nobody could read, because nobody had to read, because basically there were no books, because they were too expensive. When Gutenberg invented the printing press in 1450, suddenly it became possible for anybody to publish, and we went very quickly from being an oral-based culture to a print-based culture. The law became the written law. The Constitution is the written Constitution that everybody can read. The religion became Bibles that everyone could read, and suddenly the power of the papacy and Catholicism began to unravel as everyone got access. So universities arose, and then came newspapers and magazines. The whole world that we lived in pretty much was based on this Gutenberg revolution, and we lived in a world of print, like all of these books right here. That all changed in a very strange way on July 21st, 1969. That was the day that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. As he stepped out of the moon, NASA transmitted this fantastic event. First man to walk on the moon, first human being to go to the moon ever. Transmitted it live back to the planet Earth, where 600 million people watched Armstrong step out of the LEM onto the surface of the moon. It was the biggest television audience in history. And of course, everyone was mesmerized. And NASA had gone to enormous lengths to broadcast live from the moon. Nobody had ever done anything like this before. So it was a fantastic television moment. In 1972, a mere 3 years later, Eugene Cernan walked on the moon for the last time. And no one has been back to the moon since then in, 46 years, 47 years. Why is that? Why did nobody go back to the moon? Concurrent with the NASA landing on the moon, Neil Armstrong, which just came out as a movie, ironically, another space event was going on television sets at the same time. And that was that Captain James T. Kirk in the Starship Enterprise, the very same week that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, Captain Kirk encountered Dr. Janice Lester, who through alien technology actually was put into Kirk's body, and Kirk's brain was put into Dr. Lester's brain, and only Spock could figure out that Lester, in fact, was Kirk and Kirk was Lester, if you follow me so far. So essentially, NASA going to the moon in real life and Star Trek going to God knows where in fictional life occurred on the same TV sets at the same exact time. And at that specific moment, 1969, Americans had a choice. And they could opt for continuing to live in the real world, which was people going to the moon for NASA, or they could opt for living in the fictional world, which was Captain Kirk and the Klingons and flying off into space. And as a nation, we collectively decided we preferred the fictional world to the real world. So after 1972, nobody ever went back to the moon again because it was boring. It was bad television, fundamentally. At the same time, we went to Star Trek, went to movies and series and TV shows and cartoons, and then there was Star Wars and Battleship Galactica and all this other. The reason that nobody went back to the moon was not the cost of a lunar exploration. The entire Apollo program cost $25 billion. Which it was in 1969 dollars, admittedly, so there's some inflation. That was not a lot of money, and today the Defense Department budget is about $870 billion, so we could afford to go back to the moon if we wanted to, but nobody does. Nobody wants to go back. It's not the technology, because the computer that they took with them in the landing thing in the Apollo had about 4K of random access memory, which means your toaster has more computer processing power than the entire Apollo module. So we can go back to the moon like that if we wanted to. As a society, we don't want to. And we don't want to because it's boring. But as a society, we love Star Wars and Star Trek, and now we have collectively probably spent more on Star Wars and Star Trek and all the Star Wars movies and all that kind of stuff than we spent to go to the moon. And that is our interest in the future, is as a society, we opted to be based on television entertainment as opposed to reality. This is it is who we are. We are a television culture. The average American today spends 7 hours and 55 minutes watching television every single day. And on top of that, we have Instagram, which is video, and we got Facebook as video, and we got video right here on our phones. So we are a video-driven culture. The average American spends, sadly, 19 minutes a day reading books like these, which is next to nothing, actually. So when it came to weighing out whether we wanted to live in a world of entertainment on television, fiction, movies, which is great, but a sort of inward looking, in 1969, we as a society collectively made a choice. We decided we preferred fictional trips to Klingon planets than real trips to the moon. And that's why we haven't gone back to the moon, because it's bad TV. Ironically, NASA understood that television was intrinsic to keeping public support, and that's why they put a television camera on the moon with the Apollo 11. In Apollo 12, sadly, the astronauts pointed the television camera they brought with them at the sun and burned out the tube, and so there were no television pictures to come back from the moon, and public interest in the second lunar landing was negligible and less as it went further. Apollo was really supposed to go to 20 landings. They cut it off at 17 because everyone was bored of seeing a guy in grainy black and white hit a golf club off on the lunar surface. Nobody was bored with seeing Captain Kirk or endless iterations of Han Solo and Star Wars and stuff like that. So, as I said, as a society, we made a decision. The invention of the printing press in 1450 created a certain kind of a society. It created a society that was based upon written words, documents, print. And the thing with written words is you can say, I see it in writing, I'm going to hold you to what you've said. The thing about a television-based culture, which is what we are now, or a video-based culture, is that everything is malleable. There's no reality to it because it's mostly fiction to begin with, and anyway, you can change from day to day. So you see, politicians can make stuff up every day, but they're based on an entertainment culture. Some politicians are incredibly entertaining on television, and whether they are truthful or not is, in a world driven by television, absolutely immaterial. You couldn't get away with this in a world driven by print, but we don't live in a world driven by print anymore. We live in a world driven by television and entertainment and video and images and sound. That's who we are. So, I mean, all this stuff is museum quality. So we should just wrap our heads around this. Now, is there a solution to this problem? Because to me, it's a problem, because if you live in a world based solely on entertainment and images, then pretty soon you start electing people who are entertaining instead of doing anything worthwhile, and that in the long run will create a bad culture. A lot of stuff that happens now is solely based on entertainment value as opposed to real intrinsic value, and things go like that. You see, Khashoggi's murder in Saudi Arabia was a big story, and now nobody wants to talk about it anymore because it's boring, right? That's the problem with entertainment culture and video culture and television culture. You need something else and something else and something else. And there's a massacre in a synagogue in Pittsburgh next week. Nobody will talk about it anymore, or barely, because we'll move on to another crisis, another trauma, and another entertainment event. The medium, the content of this video, television, entertainment world is driven right now by several major media companies, whether it's NBC or Fox or whomever it is, because they have control of the content that you're looking for. But the miraculous thing about technology is, like the printing press, revolutions are always around the block. And the revolution that can change in terms of the video culture is that there are 3.5 billion people who have phones just like this. And as you can see, each of these phones can make video and transmit. So as the printing press democratized the medium of print and allowed anybody with an idea to publish, so 3.5 billion smartphones gives everyone the tools to also publish in this new and radically different and extremely powerful medium of video and television. And therefore, the answer to the problem of an idiot culture driven solely by entertainment is for the people to rise up and seize control of this medium themselves and take it away from NBC and Fox and CBS and all these people who are only interested in maximum audiences and maximizing their profitability by putting the most banal, idiotic entertainment they can on screen, and instead that we should take control, and as intelligent people began to write books, intelligent people should start to make videos and flood the blogosphere with intelligent videos as opposed to crap. I think that's possibly the only way out of this mess. Otherwise, it's gonna be all idiot all the time. Maybe that's what we want. We'll find out.